No one cares that you took my course. So zero. No one's going to be, that's why we don't give a diploma out, because the diploma is worthless. No one really cares if you went, where you studied, who taught you. All they care about is the script good or not? Does it make them want to turn the page or not? Do they want to find out what happens next or not?
You're listening to What the Hell is Michael Jamin Talking About? Conversations in writing, art, and creativity. Today's episode is brought to you by my debut collection of true stories, A Paper Orchestra, available in print, ebook, and audiobook. To purchase and to support me and this podcast, please visit michaeljamin.com/book. And now, on with the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to a very special episode of What the Hell is Michael Jamin Talking About? I'm here with my guest host, Kevin Lewandowski, and he helps out a lot with the podcast, with all my social stuff. And he's actually, by trade, he's a writer's assistant, script coordinator, which is actually one step higher than writer's assistant. So he's worked on a bunch of shows. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael. For those of you, sorry, I'm not Phil. I'm just kind of filling in for Phil for a couple days, but I'm excited to be here. And I hope to tell you all a little bit about script coordinating as well and what that all entails.
Filling in for Phil. What shows were you script coordinator on?
So the big one was Why Women Kill.
Did we ever figure out why?
I mean, depending on who you ask, a lot of women will say because of men.
They killed for ratings.
Right. Killed for ratings. Okay, that's better. But yeah, that was I forgot how long ago that was, but that was, unfortunately, we got canceled 4 or 5 days before we were supposed to start filming. Our actors had just landed in Canada, and then like the next day they announced they were pulling the plug on the show. So
why?
Could be many reasons. I think a lot of it had to do with we were a little bit behind on scripts, and then budgeting, and we were still kind of in the midst of COVID precautions and things like that.
People don't realize, like, especially new showrunners, like, you don't mess with the budget. Like, you get things done on time, or else you're screwed.
Yeah.
What other shows did you work on then?
So the first show I ever worked on was in 2015. It was The Muppets, and that was it was funny because I thought, if anyone ever caught a break, this is my break. Because I was like, it's The Muppets. It's going to go on for 5 or 6 years, and I'm just going to notch up every year. And after 16 episodes, that one got canceled.
What's Miss Piggy really like?
I mean, she is who she is. It's she's difficult. She's a bit of a diva. We had to cater to all of her needs.
And I'm sorry. And what were the other shows? Screw Miss Piggy.
Screw Miss Piggy. So after that, a bunch of pilots that never got picked up, and then I worked for a show on Netflix called The Ranch with Ashton Kutcher and Sam Elliott. That was a live audience show, and I was there for 2 seasons. I'm trying to think. After that, it's all becoming a blur. I did 2 seasons of Why Women Kill. Actually, the first year I was a line producer's assistant. And so that was interesting to kind of see the financial side of things and see where they decide to put the money in. And then for season 3, they moved me to script coordinator.
But The Ranch was a legit show. That was a big show.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun because I'd always wanted to work in the multicam world. There's just something about show night, and it's just kind of a big party for everyone, and you get to see the audience's instant gratification, and it's just a lot of fun. A lot of fun to work on those shows.
Yeah. Well, now the next thing for us to do is try to get you another one of these jobs, so you don't have to co-host with me all the time on this podcast.
I don't mind co-hosting with you.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll see if you feel that way at the end.
Okay, so that's fair.
This is a special Q&A. We do these monthly webinars, or whatever, every 3 weeks, actually. And we have a lot of questions we can't answer. And so we save them for the podcast. And now Kevin's going to feed them to me. He's going to regurgitate them to me. He's going to baby bird them into my mouth.
Yep.
And then I'm going to try to answer them as best I can.
Early bird gets the worm, or something like that.
Gross, Kevin.
Gross. And I apologize in advance for anyone's name I might butcher.
Oh, it's okay. You can. They don't need to. I mean, whatever. If you get it wrong, it's okay.
So these first few questions are going to be kind of course-related questions. The first one is from Datboy, Datboi. And that person's asking, what are the best tips for making my script shine more than the rest.
Oh boy. Well, I wish he would. Well, he was already at my free webinar. I wish he would sign up for my course. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what the course is. The best tips for making it shine is making sure your act breaks pop, making sure the dialogue feels fresh, your characters are original. I mean, like there's no tips. It's not a tips thing. It's 14 hours of let me tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
Death boy. I wish what do you think, Kevin? What's your answer for him?
I think, it's one of the things you always say on your webinars is after taking my course, you'll just hear me yelling in your head all the time about this is your, end of act 2 moment. This is that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can vouch for that and say anytime I'm looking through a script or even watching, a TV show, because of your course and just understanding the story structure, you get like those spider senses like, oh, the end, like the raising of the stakes should be coming, very soon now. We're about halfway through the episode. So something better be changing here. And, I think it's just, again, everything you say in your course of just knowing, those beats when they need to hit, how they need to pop, will help set your script, ahead of amateur writers.
You're a good student, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
So KM Falaise, when I say I don't have experience, but I have a killer pilot and I took Michael Jamin's course, how much of a difference is the course going to make in terms of being a desirable hire?
Well, no one cares that you took my course. So 0. No one's going to be, that's why we don't give a diploma out, because the diploma is worthless. No one really cares if you went, where you studied, who taught you. All they care about is the script good or not? Does it make them want to turn the page or not? Do they want to find out what happens next or not?
Yep.
So I wish I could give you, better answer than that. I mean, but it's not the degree. The degree doesn't worth anything. Hopefully the knowledge is worth something.
Yeah. And I think like the analogy I have in my head of your course is, I look at scripts I wrote before taking your course, and it's like when you look back at high school photos and I had like the frosted tips, the puka shell necklace, hoop earring. and at the time it was cool. And now you look back and it's like, it's pretty cringeworthy. Like it's pretty cringeworthy to see those photos. And now after taking your course, I feel like it's like, now I'm wearing a suit and I don't have the hoop earring and I don't have the frosted tips. And I'm not as, cringeworthy when I look back at some of the scripts I wrote, a year or so ago.
Good. All right. Good. Very good. Impressing me more and more, Kevin.
Right. Next question. Revuris. I'm butchering that one.
No, perfectly. That's how he says his name.
Yeah. What are the most important things an inspiring writer should be aware of while reviewing one script before sending it to an established executive or writer?
God, it's pretty much the same answer as all the other ones. It's like, do your act breaks pop? Is it fresh? The dialogue? I'm sorry, but it's the same answer. So I don't really have anything to say. Yeah.
Next question, Malveille.
Exactly.
In a 26-page pilot, is page 11 too late for the first act break, second act being on page 20?
On a 26-page script, the first back break's on 11. Is that what they said?
Yeah.
It's not terrible. I've seen worse things.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's a single space. It's not terrible. Yeah.
Colin Miller, what is a good system to practice writing every day? I like this question.
A good system.
A good system.
Well, I don't know why you like it, because I'm stumped. I mean, I would just say write. A good system is to, I'm most creative in the morning, so that's when I want to write, and I try to do my busy work in the evening, stuff that's easier. So whatever, but you might be a night owl. But I would just carve out time every day and just sit down at the computer and write. And don't be so precious. No one's going to look at your first draft. The first draft can be terrible. So don't just get it on paper. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of maybe misconceptions people have is writing every day isn't necessarily open up final draft and typing something. Sometimes it's going on a walk for an hour and a half and thinking about the story you're trying to tell and laying out the beats in. I live in Glendale and there's a outdoor mall. It's fun to kind of just walk around there and people watch a little bit. And sometimes
the Americana, that's where you go.
Yep, right by the Americana.
Are you in walking distance to that?
Yeah, a few blocks.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You like to go on the trolley?
I've never been on that trolley. I'm always afraid.
You like to ring the bell on Charlie, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm always afraid it's going to hit someone.
Yeah, I know.
Because
Yeah.
it's that thing takes up a lot of the path.
Yeah. All right.
Next question. So NRS creates, I guess this isn't a question, it's more of a comment. It said, agreed, the course is changing the way I see all of my stories.
Good.
Great.
Great.
Christina Mosini, who's a current student, and
Yeah.
Michael Jamin's course, we learn to break and structure story well before writing those bits and pieces of a script glued together, that we won't have to cling to anyone to make them fit. We basically learned how to build in order. I think that goes back to your, kind of analogy of laying the foundation first and doing the, starting with the characters and beat sheets and then outlining and eventually getting to the physical writing of the script.
Yeah, she's doing great, Christina. She's like,
Yeah.
Having a good amount of success early on. So
Yeah.
I'm impressed. Yeah.
Another very active person in the course, Lori John. Michael's course is amazing.
Oh.
When you take the class, you also become of the Jamin Facebook community.
Mm.
We do table reads and give each other notes twice a month. Writer sprints Wednesday nights and mock writers room. So anyone that's thinking about getting the course, we have this private Facebook group, and it's a bunch of great people in there, and we're all just trying to build each other up.
It really is. It's impressive because when you look at some of the other Facebook group, the screenwriting groups, or on Reddit, there are groups, it's mostly people trying to tear each other down. Yeah. But because this is private, I think they're not like that at all. They're very it's a community, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was a big thing for you, because you said you were in some of those groups, and you I think you even said you sometimes, as a professional working writer, you would say something, people would attack you.
Yeah, like, no, you don't. What are you talking about? Oh, all right. I happened like once or twice. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. No. All right. Next question. VV Oral. Is it worth it? And parentheses, story structure is very detailed in your course. So I think maybe it's worth it, not is it worth it. So yeah, I think it's just more people praising about your course.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, so now we have some craft questions.
Good.
From Malve again. Is it okay to end a pilot on a cliffhanger?
Yeah, it's okay, but it better not. You're really counting on the fact that that anyone's going to care. I mean, so you're better, like, a lot. I think what the danger is, you may be writing towards this cliffhanger thinking that everyone's going to be so, oh my God, what's going to happen? If you don't write, if all those pages beforehand aren't so great, no one's going to care what happens.
Right.
And so a lot of people write towards this cliffhanger thinking, oh my, aren't you going to be enthralled? And the answer is no, we don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think trying to work like backwards from that, I think, can be a disservice. And I think it's just, you definitely don't want that cliffhanger to be more exciting necessarily than your act one break.
Yes.
Because that's what we know, what we're following.
Yeah.
Lex Macaluso, once I have a great script, what are the practical steps to do?
Well, once you have a great script, write another one for sure. And then you want to make sure you actually do have a great script, and you do that by showing it to people. And it doesn't have to be somebody in the industry. It could be a friend or a mother or someone whose opinion you trust. What do you think? And if they love it and they say, this is amazing, show me something else, you're onto something. But if they say, well, I like this part, or I like when this happened, or this is a good storyline, then that's not a great script. So you have to be honest with yourself. It's really hard to write a great script. Everyone assumes they have it. And like, I don't assume I have it. So, when I do my job really well, I might have a good script.
Yeah. Like
a great script is really, you got to really hit it out of the park.
Yeah. And I think, like, just that idea of like, what is a great script, so arbitrary. And, I think it's like sticking to the story structure, of what you teach in your course can help set your script apart from others. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, it's those things that I'm looking for. All those things that I say that when I'm reading a script, what I'm looking for, and what I'm really looking for is I want a really good script. It doesn't have to be great, because a really good script stands out. Like great or amazing is very rare. I mean, how often do you see a movie that's been made
or a TV show, and you go, "This is a great script." Most
Yeah.
of the time, you're like, "Oh, this is really good."
So if you were reading a script and let's say maybe the structure wasn't, where you think it should be, but the characters were very compelling and the characters were witty with what they were saying, would you still be okay with that, or vice versa? If maybe the characters was a little bit too much speaking on the nose, but the structure and everything was spot on. With that,
we years ago we hired on a show. We were running a show, and we were reading a ton of scripts, and we got to one where Act 1 was really good, Act 2 was really good, and Act 3 was not very good. And we hired him anyway because we were thought at that point I was like, doesn't he did the first two parts really well. We could fix Act 3, not a problem. And so I think that says a lot. You do Act 1 and Act 2, like that's a big deal. He was a young writer.
Do you see a pattern of is with a lot of writers starting out, is Act 2 where they struggle the most, or is it Act 3, or is it?
I don't listen. If I don't make it to Act 2 if Act 1 isn't good. I don't read further. I get another script.
Yeah.
If I got a stack of scripts, I don't. Who cares about Act 2 if Act 1 sucks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben Miller, what screenplays are the best to read to learn from? Like perhaps the West Wing pilot, which I read in a screenwriting class.
Well, it depends what you want to write. If you want to write drama, then maybe West Wing pilot. I haven't read it, but you can also learn from reading bad scripts. You can say to yourself, as long as you're honest, why am I not interested in this? And if you know what to look for, why is the script not compelling? Is the dialogue? Is it the act breaks? Do they now pop? Like, you'll know what to look for, and then the trick is to be honest with yourself, because there's been times even in my early career where I might pitch something to my partner and he'll say, if you read that in a script, in someone else's script, you'd say that sucks. Yeah. And I just go, really? I thought it was good. He goes, no, you would say it sucks. So then at that point you got to go, okay, you got to back off, and you don't fight for it. You got to be honest with yourself.
I think another amazing thing in today's world that didn't really exist, when you started out, is pretty much any show that's out there right now, you can get access to some version of the script, whether it was a writer's draft or a production draft.
Is that true? How do you find it?
I mean, if you just go to Google and you type in, Breaking Bad pilot script, there's, going to be versions that you can download. And it's always interesting to, read those scripts and then watch the first episode and see how much did they change. Because I doubt you'll be able to find like necessarily the final shooting draft online, but those first couple writer's drafts are available. And it's always interesting just to see, you're reading it and you really, really like this part, but then you watch the episode and they took it out. You're like, oh, okay, that's interesting that they.
If you really wanted up your game, you could also watch the pilot of Breaking Bad and type out the script while you're watching it, and then read it later and look for what are the act breaks. What are the act breaks? How do they work? What's the dialogue on that? Or what's the last line of every scene? What's the dialogue like at the last line?
That's it. When I was doing like writer's assistant, script coordinating stuff, that's what I used to do to type faster. Just sit and watch TV and just type out the script as it was happening.
Wow. Good for
you. Because I mean, in the room, they don't like it when you say, "Hey, can you slow down a little bit? Can I hear that again?"
No,
you gotta go.
Yeah.
Okay, Parth, what advice would you offer writers to adapt to the inevitable changes and developments expected in the screenwriting field in the years to come? I'm assuming that's in the context of ChatGPT, AI, that kind of stuff.
Right now that stuff is being regulated, and I don't know of anybody who's using it in a writer's room. That's not to say I could easily be out of the loop, so I don't know. But right now, as far as I know, like ChatGPT wasn't a tool any writer that I know was clamoring for, because we all knew if it works, it's going to put us out of a job.
Right.
So any changes? I don't know. I really don't know. I would just say, maybe I'm naive, but stay the course, figure out how to write without using a computer program.
Yeah.
Or else, because if you're using the computer program, what do we need you for?
Right. Have you ever, just to see what it would look like, just prompt ChatGPT just to write you a random scene, just to see what it would look like, and then compare it to your knowledge you have of being, a professional writer for many years?
A couple of months ago, my partner decided to put some prompts into ChatGPT to come up with story ideas for Tacoma FD, for the show we were on.
Yeah.
And he just read them to me, and we were both laughing at how terrible they were. Like the idea,
Yeah.
it was like a paragraph of what's going to happen in this episode, and it was interesting how it was able to glean like what the show was and what it was like, but it was just such an oversimplification of what the show. It was like it lacked any nuance. It was kind of stupid. It was like, nah, that's not. I know that's what you. It was like almost like asking a 4-year-old what you think the show is, and the 4-year-old's, yeah, you okay, you're right. It's about firemen. Okay, sure, but it was other than that, it was the ideas were terrible.
Yeah. Another question from NRS Creates. What are your thoughts on screenwriting competition websites like Coverfly and The Blacklist? Is that a good way to get a script into people's hands? Thoughts on one act scripts like one act plays? Do they have 3 acts inherently? A lot of questions.
I think you're the better person to answer the first part.
Yeah, so I've definitely submitted to some of those contests just to see A, if I would get anywhere, B, what kind of feedback they would give. And a lot of times it's, not very helpful feedback. And, like you've talked about, you have to question who these people are that are giving feedback, because chances are they're not professional working writers right now, because they would not have the time, to go through 20, 30 scripts to give feedback. So chances are these could potentially be recent college graduates that are just, doing what they think, what they learned in film school. And interestingly enough, I think Phil, he went through one competition. He sent me like what the feedback was, and just reading it, I was like, this sounds very Chat GPT, AI. It was just very, because he sent me other ones he got, and I was like, okay, this feels like a person actually read this. This feels like it could have been put in Chat GPT, write a response based on what you think. And then when I said that to him, he was like, you might be right. He's like, you might be right.
Interesting. Back when I was writing my book and I submitted to some publishers, whatever, a couple wrote back why they didn't like it, why they didn't want to option the book or whatever, and a couple a couple of them, their feedback was like, no, it's clear to me you barely read it. It's like, and which I understand, because these are low level publishing types, editors, and on their weekend read, they probably had to read a couple dozen books, manuscripts. They're not going to give it full attention. And I was like, so some of the criticism was like, okay, that's a fair criticism, but that is not. There's literally no truth in what you're saying there. You just phoned it in because you have to read so much over the weekend. And so I don't know. That you got to take. No one's going to. I mean, it's the same thing for these websites. Like, are they really going to put their heart and soul into it?
Right.
No. Why would they?
They don't care. They just want the money. Yeah.
Yeah. Why would they?
Yeah. You think about like, someone in your position, giving feedback to, a fellow writer, that might take you 2.5 hours, read the script, think about your notes, and then, put them in a format to be able to explain them to the writer. And I don't think, these people in those competitions are doing that. They probably just read it once and write down what they think. And it's funny how, like, some of them, it's what would you rank the character dialogue on a 1 to 10? And they write like 6.5. It's like, how do you?
Yeah, where are you getting that from?
What is 6.5? Okay, so then what would have gotten me an 8 or an 8.5 or a 9?
One of the things we just started doing on their website, if you have the course, our screenwriting course, I have a couple of friends who are high level writers who are willing to give notes, but here's the thing, like, you're going to pay, like, it's not cheap, because you're going to pay these people to sit down and read your damn script for 2 or 3 hours, and they're not getting $10 an hour.
Right.
That's not what they're going to get.
Right.
So, like, I don't know what, you get what you paid for. So, anyway.
And then, so I guess we kind of, so is this a good way to get your script into people's hands? So I think, yeah, I mean, it's technically people's hands, but I don't know if I
don't think they're the right hands.
Feedback is going to be any valuable. And then thoughts on 1-act scripts, like 1-act plays. Do they have 3 acts inherently?
That's an interesting question. Do they have 3 acts inherent? I would say yes, in terms of the structure, in terms of what makes something compelling. But you know, not necessarily, I guess. Like I've written
Yeah.
some stories in my book that don't fall into the traditional three act structure, but they come close.
Yeah.
They definitely come close to it, and that's just because, well, it doesn't really matter why, but you can't go wrong when
Yeah.
you really can't go wrong if you structure something like the way we teach.
Yeah. So in your opinion, because I've heard sometimes people use like a 5 act structure. And I think
Mhm.
for me, I think it's basically the same 3 act structure, but like so act one will be act one, and then act two is like
Mhm.
act two A, and then act two
Yeah.
B. And so it's kind of broken up
Yeah.
like that. So for
Well,
me,
Shakespeare wrote that way.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And he's all
so
right. He
he's
did
all
it all
right.
right.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's easier not to write. I just think three is easier to get your head around. So,
Yeah. Yeah, because I think just the thought of like hearing the words, so writing 5 acts, like that
yeah.
just sounds like it can be a lot. But if you can be like,
Yeah.
oh, 3 acts, okay, I can do that.
Yeah. Right. Anyone can do that. Yeah.
Next topic, breaking in. DJ asked, when starting out to obtain that experience, what sort of job should one be searching for? Staff writer, assistant, etc.
You should be searching for the production assistant job
Yeah.
on anywhere.
Yep.
And eventually, after a season or two, see if you can move to a job that's closer to the writer's room
Yeah.
physically. Do what Kevin did. That's what he did.
Yeah, and I think there's staff writer, that's obviously not entry level.
Yeah.
Assistant, there's various assistant positions you could have. You can do production assistant, you can do showrunners assistant, executive assistant. I think one of the terminologies people may get confused is there's writer's production assistant and then writer's assistant.
Yeah.
And the writer's production assistant is the one that's responsible for getting the lunches, stocking the kitchen, making copies, things like that. And the writer's assistant is the one that sits in the room, types up the notes and the jokes that are being pitched. And they work closely with the script coordinator. And as you've said many times, the writer's assistant is not an entry level job. It can be very intense at times.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I've worked with several assistants, either writer's assistants, production assistants, who've since gone on to become staff writers who have had successful careers. So it's not many. So,
yeah.
Kevin, hopefully you'll be next.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too.
Yeah.
Next question, Sammy AK. So the best way to get a foot in the door to support and learn the biz, write-in assistant or PA? We kind of just answered that. Yeah, production assistant is that entry level. You're kind of just the gopher, and you're the whatever they kind of need you go do, and you prove yourself to those people above you, and they notice. They notice. People notice when you're either calling it in or you're really going above and beyond to make whoever's ahead of you life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
All right, now we got some miscellaneous. Here's a fun question. Tulio, how close are you to officially publishing your book, Michael?
It's already out, Tulio. You can go get it. You can find it. Signed copies are available at michaeljamin.com/book, or you can search for A Paper Orchestra on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or the audiobook on Audible or Spotify or Apple. How about that?
Get the book, everyone.
Get the book.
Get the book. Comment to address from Jonathan Loudon. Classic real world dilemma. I like this. Can't get experience without getting hired. Can't get hired without experience. That's why who you know is such a reality.
Well, but if you're starting off in an entry level position, you don't need to know anybody. You just have to put yourself out there. So, and then in terms of knowing someone later in your job, well, now you already know people. Now you broke it, because it's entry level is literally, do you have a pulse in a car?
Right.
So, I find it's a convenient excuse. Put yourself out there, and Kevin, you didn't have any contacts when you broke into Hollywood. None.
Nope. Yeah.
So there you go.
You just got to knock on some doors. I think like people that work in the industry, they know kind of how it works. Like once you break in, you become a PA and you make those, network connections with production coordinators that you've worked with and people on the show, and you build those genuine relationships and you do good. Then when they go to the next show and they're like, hey, we need someone,
Yeah.
then they'll reach out to you. So
And they're
really
not reaching out for you because they're as a favor to you. They're reaching out to you because we need to hire someone, and I don't really want to spend days interviewing.
right. I already know you
So
can do the job.
yeah,
It's so much easier just to bring you aboard.
yeah, right. It's not like
Yeah.
a favor to you; it's a favor to them.
Yeah.
So.
You are listening to What the Hell is Michael Jamin Talking About? Today's episode is brought to you by my new book, A Paper Orchestra, a collection of true stories. John Mayer says it's fantastic. It's multi-timbral. It runs all levels of the pyramid at the same time. His knockout punches are stinging sincerity. And Kirkus Review says, those who appreciate the power of simple stories to tell us about human nature, or who are bewitched by a storyteller who has mastered his craft, will find a delightful collection of vignettes, a lovely anthology that strikes a perfect balance between humor and poignancy. So, my podcast is not advertiser supported. I'm not running ads here. So if you would like to support me or the podcast, come check out my book. Go get it in an ebook or a paperback, or if you really want to treat yourself, check out the audiobook. Go to michaeljamin.com/book. And now back to our show.
Next question, all-nighter cinema. What makes your script stand out if it's a book adaptation and the story isn't your original story?
Well, do you have the rights to adapt the book is one question. So if you don't, I probably wouldn't adapt it. And that's not to say that, when people think you adapt a book, there is some, you still have to have these act break props, these scenes have to unfold. Books don't, it's not like books are a slam dunk to adapt. I mean, there's definitely some art and craft that has to be applied to turning into a script.
Yeah.
So that's how you make it stand out.
And I think one of the other things, you like to say is, there's, if you have a book, there might be a few different stories happening throughout that book. And, like in your Paper Orchestra, one of the examples you get, like, I forget what it was called, the about the swing dance. And I forgot what that chapter was called.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah. As you said, like there was other stuff happening at that point in your life, but it was just this story was the one you wanted to tell. Like, of course you were going to work and doing stuff like that, but this was the story you wanted to tell.
Right. And also, like, how many times have you seen they've adapted a book, I don't know, like a popular book into a TV show or a movie, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. It's because the book, it's not as simple as simply typing the book.
Yeah. And a lot of times people say the book was even better, or the book was better anyways. And it's hard to take, 300 pages of a book and condense it to
an hour and a half movie.
Yeah. Right. David Salzizlo, what if you have a show idea that you have done the work on and think it uniquely speaks to the present moment? Are there any shortcuts possible there or no?
Shortcuts to what? You got to write a script.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts to writing a good script. And so there's no shortcuts to selling it. There's no shortcuts anywhere. Like shortcuts, when do shortcuts ever work? Like, I don't know, Goldilocks, like where are the shortcuts?
Yeah.
Little Red Riding Hood. Other than that, in real life, you got to put the work in.
Right. Did you ever watch there's a documentary about the South Park creators and how from from blank page to delivering the episode, how many days do you think?
Well, I know they're super fast, so I would say 5?
6.
6, okay.
6 days.
That's very fast.
They are delivering it like a half hour before it's supposed to.
Yeah. And that's because the animation process is so crude that they can do it so quickly, but that's fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, they're just like, we've just gotten used to it that way. So I think like with them, in an interesting way, that's why their shows like seem like they're current and present, because something could have happened in the news last week and then that episode could air next week. Whereas like other animation shows, and I know you've worked in animation, sometimes it's 7-8 months before that
it
episode.
Could be 9 months.
Yeah.
It could be 9 months animated show. So you don't do anything topical in an animated show. Not the ones I've done.
Yeah. Next question. What if I wrote lyrics to the theme song? Is that okay to include? I think this might be in the context of, one of the things you say in your scripts, don't write music cues, don't put song lyrics in there or something like that.
You can't, I mean, like if you think you got fantastic lyrics and you're going to really impress the hell out of someone, but you still have to, when I'm reading the script, I have to imagine what the music is, and I'm not going to imagine the music. And I suppose you can write the lyrics, and maybe some people will read it and some won't. So it's up to you. Do you really think it's fantastic or not?
I had a couple scripts that I put part of a song in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then listening to, I'm like, no, it's coming out, taking it out.
I don't think. Yeah, in my opinion, there's really no. I'm not crazy about reading that, and
Yeah, yeah.
maybe other. I mean, maybe others are. I don't know.
Well, I think it's like when I think back to my script, it was I just kind of being lazy? Like, could I take that
Mm-hmm.
3/8 of a page and add something in there that's going to help this, move the storyline further, or is it,
Yeah.
or was I just looking for kind of like what's a funny moment I could have right now?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. From Aaron, in terms of recognizing good writing, what is considered too much in terms of providing direction to actors, description of character thoughts and emotions, etc.?
The less you want to, I would do, the less the better, in my opinion. You don't want to let the actors do their job, and if you feel you can't convey the anger in a scene or the love in a scene with dialogue, and you're yelling at the actors to do it this way, then you haven't done your job as the writer.
Yeah.
You do your job, not everyone else's. As far as action lines go, I'm of the camp that the shorter, the better, because most writers or most people reading do not want to read your action line.
Right.
I suppose one day if you get, I think when you get more successful, if you're Aaron Sorkin, you can write whatever the hell you want. And because he writes his actions on, I imagine like poetry, like it's probably like his action lines are probably just as interesting as his dialogue because he's such a great writer. But I don't count on it when you're starting off.
I was reading something, I forgot who the actor was, but they said the actor always requested that their script have like commas and apostrophes taken out of the dialogue because they felt like they didn't want someone telling them how to say things.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can respect as an actor, but I was like, that poor script coordinator, they have to go through that whole script again and take everything out.
That's a little bit much to me. It seems like, well, putting a comma in there is like, that's just grammar. But, and if they wanted to take it out, I think they should do it themselves, but whatever.
Yeah. From Jonathan Loudon again, how many feature films have you written, pitched but never sold?
Well, we wrote one as completely as a spec, and that did not sell, but that got us a producer interested in our writing, and then we wrote two more that did sell as pitches. We pitched them first, then we got paid to write the script. And as far as I can remember, I don't think we wrote any other feature scripts. I think we maybe had some ideas that were batting around, but we never actually pitched or wrote. But we work mostly in TV, so.
Yeah. So do you know, and because from what I can recall, you've never sold a feature that actually went into production, correct?
Right. They don't go. They never do.
Yeah. And how do you think you would feel? Because as you say, like TV, the showrunner, head writer has the final say, and on a feature, it's the director that has the final say. I worked with someone, his name's Steve Rudnick, and he wrote Space Jam and the Santa Claus movies with Tim Allen. And he told me this story how he was at a baseball game and he saw someone walking down the aisle and it had Space Jam cast and crew jacket. And he asked the guy and he was like, I got, can I ask you where you got that jacket? Like, that's a really cool jacket. And he's like, well, oh, like I worked on, production. This was all like our wrap gifts. And Steve never got one because writers usually aren't part of the production aspect on feature.
And he was a credited writer on it.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's what an afterthought he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think that's probably common. I don't know why people want to become writers on movies. I mean, it would be cool, but maybe he was heavily rewritten. Maybe he was. I don't know.
Yeah. He was so bummed.
Yeah. He wasn't invited to anything.
Yeah. Right. Geo, could you elaborate on the things not to say to executives or some examples of what the producer said?
on what the producer said? I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you?
So can you elaborate on the thing? So I guess as a writer, and maybe you gave your script to an executive,
Mm-hmm.
and they were giving you feedback or said, "Hey, maybe do this, do this."
Oh,
How would you respond to those notes?
yeah. You want to be positive? Great. We'll work on that.
Yeah,
Thank you. Good idea. Interesting thought. We'll definitely, do our best with that. And then later, hopefully you can take 90% of the notes, and the ones
yeah,
you can't take, you say, I think we addressed the spirit of your note, even if we couldn't
yeah,
address your notes, or this one we couldn't make it work occasionally.
yeah,
But you're doing 90% of the notes.
yeah. I think the phrase I would always hear on notes calls is, "Okay, well, yeah, we'll take a look at it. We'll take a look at that."
Yeah, take a look at
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Next question from Cody. With short seasons, freelance opportunities have mostly gone away.
Yeah.
But are there still opportunities for freelance? And if so, how are writers pulled in for those?
I don't know. That's a good question.
No.
Because that's a question you'd have to look that up with the Writers Guild. I don't remember on our last show. I don't think there was I don't recall ever having those guys doing giving out freelance episodes to anyone. So, it used to be a Writers Guild mandate if the show was a certain length that they had to give out a certain number of freelancers. And now, um, maybe they don't have to. But I wouldn't either way. Get it out of your head that you're ever going to sell a freelance episode, because it's just so like I've over my 28 years, I think I've sold maybe 3 freelance episodes, and
Yeah.
I would do more. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's just that they're really hard to get.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of times what happens in writers' rooms is, those writers' assistants and script coordinators that have proved their worth for a couple seasons,
Yeah.
if that opportunity comes for
Yeah.
them to get a freelance episode, the showrunner helps them out with that. And that helps them get into, the Writers Guild and
Yeah.
things like that.
That's usually a bone you throw the support
Yeah.
staff after they've been there a couple of years.
That's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
It's a nice check to get.
Yeah.
Next question, David Campbell. Does a creator continue to have involvement, or do you teach them on the job?
If someone creates the show and they are not the showrunner, then that which has happened on a couple shows we've done. We were not the showrunner, and the creator had involved. They were on the writing staff, but they didn't have any say. They didn't have the final say or anything. It was if we're the showrunner, we had whoever's the showrunner has final say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question, nerds and friends. How many writers' rooms are virtual, remote nowadays? What is the path to becoming a showrunner? Is it a writer pivoting into that role? I can imagine producing experience helps.
No. So showrunner is the head writer. The way you become a showrunner is by being a writer on many shows and being good at writing. And then the producing aspect of the job, you kind of learn on the job as you rise up the ranks. You don't have to take a course, or there's no certification, and it's something you can fake.
Yeah.
So,
but for me, I never really understood like what the word producer meant
no one
in the context of television, because it's, working in the industry, you learn like, okay, writers can be producers, but then like sometimes like accountants, if they're high enough, they can also be producers, or and not every producer is necessarily like the creative vision. Some of them deal with the money aspect of it, like
they're
a line
non-writing producers, or non-writing executive producers. They're called.
Yeah. Next question, K with an asterisk next to it. Are series filmed for streaming services similar to TV regarding creative control for the showrunner?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Easy question.
Yeah.
All-nighter cinema. How different is trying to greenlight a serial TV show versus a mini series?
It just depends on what the network. Usually they're buying series. They're not buying mini series. Sometimes they're buying limited series.
Yeah.
It just depends on the network. And I wouldn't even approach. Again, your goal is to write one great script as a writing sample, and it's not to time the market and figure out who's buying what. Can you write a script? Answer that question first.
Right. If a studio buys your pilot but ends up passing, and an exec at another studio is interested, how realistic is it that they'll buy it again?
If a studio the first one will buy it?
I don't know. Like, I'm wondering if they're asking like just because one studio passes on your
Oh,
script does that mean every studio is going to pass on it?
no, you know, usually if you're lucky, you pitch to 5 studios and one buys it. That's how
Yeah.
they don't all want to buy it. You're lucky if one wants to buy it. But again, what's frustrating about all these questions that we're hearing is everyone's saying, "How do I make money selling a script?" And no one's saying, "How do I write a good script?" Everyone is already assuming that, and it's just so damn frustrating. It's like, guys, what do you think is how do you think this is going to work? It's not about the meeting. It's not about it's about writing a damn good script. First things first.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are you going to
I
do? I yell
I
into the wind. People don't listen to me on this.
I listen.
You
Phil
listen.
listen. Phil listens. Yeah, I mean, I think, there's almost this like weird delusion that,
Hmm.
people think like they're going to move out here and within a year they're going to have
Hmm.
their own
Yeah.
show. And I was just talking to someone the other day that, they're going to USC. Um, and, she was talking about, kind of her timeline with things. And she said, I want to give myself 5 years from when I graduate in 2025 to, try to get into a writer's room. And when
Okay.
she said that to me, I said, very realistic. Like
Yes. Yeah.
that's not too quick. That's, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of luck of like,
I thought you were
of,
going to say have her own show on the air.
oh no,
No.
no, no.
Yeah. Right.
She was very much, if I can be in a writer's room in 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, yeah, because it's tough, because if you can get on that show that, season one, it's not a hit yet, then it becomes a hit, that can
Hmm.
definitely fast track you
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit. And my struggle has been none of the pilots I've worked on have gotten picked up, and
Yeah.
shows have gotten canceled. And I'd like to believe that's not my fault, but it's hard to look at the. No, I'm kidding.
but yeah, I mean, but it's a little frustrating when people ask these questions. Sound to me like, when I hit a grand slam, who do I high five first? Like, dude, can you get on base? Do you know how to get a base hit? What are you
Yeah,
talking about? Just get a base hit first.
yeah,
So that's what it sounds like to me. And I wish
yeah,
people would just have more realistic expectations and would take a little more. They're everyone's assuming they already know how to do the hard part.
yeah. Next question. Given that streaming has changed the face of sitcom series writing, how do you feel about the future of the industry? Are there days of having full writers' room and staff over?
Certainly seems that way. But who knows? Like right now, if you follow what's going on, it seems like everything's becoming. We're slowly moving back to the old days. There's going to be fewer streamers. There's going to be consolidation. There's going to be, they're already talking about, these big streamers merging, and when that happens, things will change. But we don't really know right now. The industry's at a crossroads. They're not picking up a lot of shows now. They will pick up. That will happen. I imagine in a couple of months. It can't go on much longer. They're gonna have to
Yeah.
start pulling the trigger and start making TV shows again. So we don't know. We're at the crossroads.
Because I think you said, back when you were working on, Just Shoot Me In, I think you said King of the Hill. There was like more than 15 writers on King
King of
of
the
the
Hill, we
Hill.
had 20. We had 20 writers
Yeah,
on King of the Hill, and
yeah.
we would do 22 episodes in a season.
And how
Wow.
many were on Just Shoot Me?
Well, let's see. In the beginning, I would say it's closer to maybe 10 or so,
Yeah.
maybe 12 at some point.
And in your experience, do you think comedy rooms always have more writers?
Then drama? Well, I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, it just really depends on the budget of the show and
Yeah.
and how many episodes you're going to be doing.
I think I was watching something about Breaking Bad, and I think they had 6 writers.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
it? Wow.
On Why Women Kill, we had 5.
You don't. The thing about drama is that you don't have to. It's easier in the sense that when you're writing a comedy, you still need to have that structure. You still need to come up with a story that is
Right.
engaging, but it also has to be funny. But when you're doing the drama, you just need to come up with an engaging story, and it doesn't have to be funny, and it doesn't. You don't have to punch up the lines. Um, in that sense, I do think it's a little easier, but that's not to say writing Breaking Bad is easy. I mean,
Yeah.
what a great show that was.
Right. Right. Next question from Maybe. Are the tutorials in Final Draft a proper guide for making your script presentation acceptable?
What do you think? I don't know. I haven't looked at the tutorials.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nice thing about Final Draft is they have like pre-built templates that you can use.
Yeah.
So if you're writing a multicam it'll pre-build that template and everything will automatically be
Yeah.
capitalized for you. And same thing with single cam. And I think, one of the things you always say is when you hand your script to someone, they're not going to know you use Final Draft or one of these other programs to write the script. They're just going to get a printed out version. And
Yeah.
I think there's minimal things you need to do, like make sure the dialogue is in the middle of the page, and certain things are capitalized, and there's a certain formatting of that. But Final Draft can take care of all that too. So when you're done writing, you just hit File, Export as PDF, and that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
All the formatting is done.
I mean, Final Draft, like you said, has those templates, and it'll make your script look like a script, which is great. You got a script, you got something that looks like a script, but does it read like a script?
Right.
That's the
Final Draft does not do that for you.
It won't do that.
Michael's course does.
Yeah. I hope.
Yeah. Lorenzo, given your friendship with the late David Bellini, have you got any insights on Italian films, TV industry? In your opinion, is there any difference? Thank you.
From what I knew from David, when he was alive, like the difference is enormous. It's like it's a whole different film structure over there. They don't really. It's not so much of an industry as it is. I don't know. It sounded like really hard, and he was pretty successful. He worked on a bunch of shows, and he moved to L.A. to Hollywood because he's like, this is too crazy here. There's just not enough work. So, I think it was a miracle that he was as successful as he was there.
Yeah,
but it's a whole different ball game.
If the script doesn't have scenes in it, how should it be written? Is it just dialogue and descriptions? Do you have any advice for someone who wants to be a script doctor?
Okay, the script does have to have scenes in it. It can't be all one scene. That's not going to be acceptable. A script doctor is not really. That's some bullshit that people say on the internet. No one I've ever met ever called themselves a script doctor. We're all screenwriters.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you sell your own work, and sometimes you're brought in to rewrite somebody else's. And there's no script doctor. You don't get a degree, and you don't wear a stethoscope. And that's not a job. It's just sometimes you'll get paid to rewrite someone else's script. But you'll only get that job if you're a really good writer and you've written some really good scripts on your own.
Yeah.
And then when you do, usually you're like, hell, I'll just write. I want to write my own stuff. And you're brought in to change someone else's script because like, all right, someone's giving me money and here's a job and I'm in between jobs. So I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts.
Yeah.
A couple more questions. Aaron, how many followers, subscribers would someone need to have on social media for that to be interesting, an asset to a studio or showrunner?
Literally have no idea. And I'm not sure it would be interesting to a showrunner at all. I don't, as far as in terms of being a writer, you're not expected to have a social media following at all. I just happen to have one, but it's not right. No one ever asked me. No one really cares. The benefit is I can promote my own stuff because I have a following, but for a writer, you don't need that.
Yeah. And then our last question, is it okay to make the size of the words on the title page a little bit bigger?
I suppose it is.
Yeah.
I don't try to do anything fancy. I don't know why you want to. It's okay if you want to.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not desperate, but I don't know. I try to make it like, I want my script to look like just an ordinary script. I want the pages themselves, the dialogue to stand out. I'm not really trying to make the cover page stand out.
Yeah. I think it's like when, writing any paper you did in college or whatever, like the title is 18 font and then like the stuff you're writing is 12 font or whatever.
Sure. You can do that.
Yeah. I think one of the things you said is, the title page, no one necessarily cares about that. If you put a fancy image on there, that's not people aren't going to be like, oh, we got to hire this person. We got to hire this person right now.
Yeah. Don't even give any thought to the title. I mean, really, you're not going to fool anybody. So,
yeah. Well, that is all the questions we have from that webinar.
Wow. Excellent, Kevin. You did really well. You're a natural here.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you. Please continue coming to our webinars. We do them every few weeks. To sign up, go to michaeljamin.com/webinar. I got a book out. I hope you all get it. It's signed copies are available at michaeljamin.com/book. And if you want to come see me on tour, go to michaeljamin.com/upcoming. Kevin, where can people find you?
I'm on social media. Kevin_Lewandowski. Sorry, it's a very very long last name. It gets butchered a lot, but
yeah,
I'm there. And yeah, I occasionally make appearances with Michael on these webinars and things like that. So yeah, thank you all for who's been coming to the webinars and checking out Michael's stuff. Just go to michaeljamin.com and just start clicking around. There's a bunch of stuff, just a bunch of stuff. You can get his free scripts, stuff he's written. There's free lessons up there. Every podcast we do gets uploaded there. Mm-hmm. You can spend hours on that website. Just go there, click around, buy the book.
Buy the book. Thank you so much, buddy. All right, he's going to stick around. Kevin's will be back next week for another episode. I believe it's next week. We'll see when it drops, but he's going to be back around for another one. All right, everyone. Until then, keep writing, keep being creative, and all that stuff. Thanks so much.
Wow, I did it again. Another fantastic episode of What the Hell is Michael Jamin Talking About? How do I do it week after week? Well, I don't do it with advertiser-supported money. I tell you how I do it. I do it with my book. If you'd like to support the show, if you'd like to support me, go check out my new book, A Paper Orchestra. It asks the question, what if it's the smallest, almost forgotten moments that are the ones that shape us most? Laura Sandragomo says, good storytelling also leads us to ourselves, our memories, our beliefs, personal and powerful. I loved the journey. And Max Muchnick, who was on my show, says, as the father of daughters, I found Michael's understanding of parenting and the human condition to be spot on. This book is a fantastic read. Go check it out for yourself. Go to michaeljamin.com/book. Thank you all, and stay tuned. More great stuff coming next week.